Welcome back to the very next tool haul. I know it's been a while and way past due for a video like this, but here we are. It's the very first day of 2021, so I hope everyone had a very happy new year. And let's jump right into it, okay? So here we have some tools for Volkswagen and Audi specifically. Now these are to remove spark plug wires, as you can see right there. And these are to remove ignition coils. Now I did get these off of eBay or Amazon. It's pretty much the same thing. They're very inexpensive. And for what these tools do, there's no reason to go out and spend the big bucks. You don't have to go on the tool truck and buy heavy duty versions of any of these. These are very simple tools and they have very easy jobs. So there's no reason to buy the expensive stuff. I think the stuff off of eBay and Amazon is more than acceptable unless you break it. Now if you go out and break this somehow, then by all means go ahead and upgrade to a better quality product, I would say. But here's the thing, I went out and bought these. I don't normally, anyone who watches my channel knows that I don't normally work on Volkswagens or just German cars in general. But I did have a customer here that had just bought a Volkswagen CC and they said it had a V6 in it and it was going to need a tune-up, okay? So I went ahead and picked these up, and when they brought the car over, it turns out the car had a 4-cylinder. So honestly, all of this was, as you can see, I haven't used it. Everything is brand new. Do I consider it a waste of money? Not really, because I know one day I'm going to need it. And I'll be glad to have it at that point. But as of right now, I did kind of buy them for nothing. But they look like they're going to do the job. And I can't really complain about them too much because they weren't really that expensive. So let's move on to the next tool. Next up, I have another Volkswagen tool. As you can see, it's a Volkswagen oil drain plug tool. And it's still brand new in the package. Like I said, I don't work on many Volkswagens over here, but it's just nice to have. And again, it's another inexpensive tool. Now if you turn this around and look at it, you can see the handle on it looks very familiar, just like the tools I just showed you guys. So I'd imagine all this stuff is probably made in the same factory and it just gets sent out to different manufacturers and then they just put their name on it, okay? But again, another inexpensive tool. It's nice to have in the toolbox. So why not pick it up, right? So let's move on to the next set of tools. I have a set of, I can't even pronounce their name, and I know I can. I'm just gonna, Wearer. I can't say it, guys. I'm sorry, I just can't. It's just, it's not in my vocabulary. So I'm not gonna struggle to do that. Anyways, these are the Hex Plus wrenches. They do make an updated version that have like the ball detent in some of the wrenches. This one does not have that. I have opened up the package once just to look at it and then I kind of put it back. Now these are great for removing damaged fasteners because they have a slightly different design than traditional hex wrenches, and that's really where they shine, is in removing damaged fasteners. So this is definitely not a tool that you're gonna pull out all the time. It's just one of those tools where it just sits in your toolbox and when you need it, it's there to help you. Okay, so as you can see, the packaging looks real nice, and there goes what's inside. And all it comes with is a small sticker inside of here, which looks pretty cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and put that aside. Now it has this neat little carrying case right here, and it has this locking tab. Just goes up and down, and once you pop it up, it unlocks it and it lets you fold this open just like that. Now what I really like is, initially I thought this was plastic, but it's not. It feels more like a hardened rubber. So I think that was a really good idea because we all know the plastic is gonna just end up breaking right here in the center where, you know, you stress it the most. But the fact that it's more like a hardened rubber, I think you're gonna get a lot more life out of this. So I think that was a nice little touch right there. But you can see everything is color coded and it looks super nice. And yeah, I've been eyeballing this set for a while now, and I finally pulled the trigger on it because I figured there's just gonna be some day where I'm gonna have to remove a rounded off hex fastener, and I'm gonna be kicking myself in the head if I don't have a tool like this to kind of help me. Now these are super nice tools. Let me pull this out of here. And I don't wanna, you can see it has a different, let's try to get in here. It has a slightly different profile from a standard hex wrench, and they really are designed for removing damaged fasteners. So like I said, you're only going to pull these out once in a while. But honestly, I don't want to abuse these. I like the way they look, and you know, specialty tools like this that are made for extracting damaged fasteners, you don't want to damage them because then it defeats the whole purpose. So, you know, the few times that I'm gonna have to use them, if whatever I'm trying to remove doesn't want to come out, then move on to a different method. Don't keep forcing the tool, because if you end up damaging them, then they're kind of useless, honestly. You can see this end has a ball end on it for getting onto fasteners at an angle. You don't have to come onto a fastener dead on like you normally would with a standard hex. You could come at an angle, and it's going to allow you to remove that fastener even though you're not able to get a straight shot at it. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, it looks super high quality here. I just love the packaging. This is like super neat. It's going to go in the toolbox. It's going to look cool sitting there. And hopefully it'll save my butt one day when I need it to extract a rounded off fastener. With that being said, let's move on to the next tool. Next up, we have a Astro pneumatic tool, and here goes the part number for that. It is a pneumatic hole punch and flange maker. Inside the box, you don't get much else besides the tool, which is right here, and it does not come with this fitting. I installed this fitting myself. But this tool has two features on it, okay? The first one is a flange maker. You can see it right here. It's basically gonna make a step in your sheet metal, so you could overlap two pieces of sheet metal. And yeah, super neat to have that. Another neat feature is this bad boy right here, which is a hole punch. So you could do things like plug welds. Comes in hand, and they do make manual versions of these tools, so you could buy like a manual hole punch and a manual flange maker, but they're extremely not user friendly. Okay, you will get fatigued very quickly doing them manually, and this thing just saves a bunch of time. I haven't used this one specifically, so I don't have any footage of this in use for you, so I do apologize for that. But I have used these tools in the past, and they are a lifesaver whenever you're doing body work or sheet metal work. And the reason why I picked this up alongside with another tool that I'm going to show you later on in this video is because of my CRX. When I start doing the body work and the sheet metal work, you really want tools like this, okay, just to save yourself the frustration and the time. So there isn't really much else to say about this tool, so let's go ahead and move on to the next tool. Next up, I have a brake line straightening tool. Now this one is made by 4 Lifetime Lines. I got this on eBay, but if you start to look for this tool, the most common place that kept popping up for me was Eastwood, but I ended up finding it on eBay for roughly the same price. You got to make sure that you're getting the correct size that you normally use. This one is for a 3/16 line. Hopefully that's focusing. And that's because when I do brake lines, 99% of the brake lines I do, or fuel lines, whatever you're going to do, I mainly mess around with 3/16 lines. So make sure you get the appropriate size for the lines that you're messing with, alright? And if we zoom in right here, get up closer to the camera, you can see it works with steel, stainless steel, aluminum or aluminum for your other people, copper coils for brake, fuel lines, and more. Okay, so the way this thing works is it has a bunch of rollers inside of it. You can see the rollers right there, and they're all over this thing. Inside of there, you could see them. For anyone who's ever done a decent amount of brake lines, okay, I buy these brake lines, these are copper nickel, and they come wound up in a large coil, so you know they're in a round shape, and you got to try to straighten them out by hand the best you can, right? And sometimes by the time you're done doing a very large section of brake line, it doesn't look as straight as it could be, and it's because when you're trying to bend it by hand, it's never really all that great. Okay, so here I have a piece that, if I get this to focus right there, here I have a piece that you could clearly tell is not straight, right? Just a little bit off, and I'm just gonna go ahead and exaggerate a little bit more. Just give it a bend right there and a bend right there, kind of like a S shape. You could see that. Alright, so I can't put this all the way through the tool because for some reason this end already has a flare on it, but this is just as an example. So let's go ahead and push this right through. It's going to be tough at first, but the second time should be a lot easier, and it's already done most of the straightening by now. So at this point, the more you put it in here and you just keep rotating it to get different angles. Alright, this thing's done already. It's super easy to put it in now, and look at this. You remember that crazy bend that I had in it? And here I am spinning it so you could see I'm trying to get this to focus. That's not bad. okay, considering the crazy bend that it had in it initially. And you can imagine when you're working with a much larger piece, how something as small as a little bend here, a little bend there equates to a very wonky looking piece. So this is super neat. I really like this tool, and once I found out about it, I was like, I gotta have it. Okay, so it's gonna, you know, is it gonna make your job better? Is it gonna make your brake lines seal any better? No, because that's all part of the flaring, and you should have that down pat. This is basically just to make my job look a little bit cleaner. So if anyone were to go underneath the car and look at a brake line job that I did, you know, it's something that I'm proud to show, and it just makes your job look cleaner. That looks pretty dang good to me, guys. So there isn't much else to say about this tool. Let's go ahead and move on to the next tool, which is honestly a bunch of Eastwood tools. Since we're on the subject of brake lines, it only makes sense to move on to this tool. This one is from Eastwood. Now, I don't know, you may be able to find these tools on eBay or Amazon, but honestly, I just got them from Eastwood. Okay, and the reason for that is there's actually a Eastwood really close to where I'm at. So it's just a matter of driving into my local store and picking them up. Simple as that. Nothing else comes inside this box. This is a brake line bending tool, and there you go. You could find these all over eBay, Amazon, but I just wanted a slightly better quality than the less inexpensive ones that you could get on eBay or Amazon. And I don't know, I just like the fact that I could just go into a store and physically pick these up and look at them before I make my purchase, and it's what I did. I've gone ahead and put in my 3/16 line, and let's just say I want to make a bend, I don't know, right there. Okay, so you get the line in, get it all set up, and of course you're gonna have to do your own measurements of where you want your bend and how much you want it to bend, but basically it just makes it this easy. So let's go ahead and bend this line around. You want a 90-degree bend. You could see there are measurements right here engraved into the metal. Hopefully that's picking up, and you could pretty much just stop the tool right at the 90-degree bend, and when you go ahead and take this out, alright, so a bit of a restart. As you can see, I've gone out to the garage and got some more brake lines, same 3/16, okay. Let's put that aside, that thing's all mingled up. So what I want to do now is I'm going to try to make a 90-degree bend with my fingers, okay? Of course, it's not going to be great, but let's see how this fares up against actual tool bending. So, nice and easy. This stuff's pretty easy to bend. Honestly, that looks pretty good. I'm sure it's not a perfect 90, right? But the main concern here is I don't see any kinks in the line, okay? Looks real good to me. You gotta keep in mind when it comes down to tools is not every tool is great, okay? Sometimes you're gonna buy a tool and realize it just doesn't work like you thought it would. Okay, so as you can see, we are in there. Let's go ahead and start with our bend. All the way down to about 90. Okay, so clearly, let's see, they're actually pretty close, but one thing I noticed is the line that was bent with the tool, okay, it just looks more of a complete 90. You could just see it looks like a right angle right there, whereas the one I bent has more of a curve to it, okay? But the one that has more of a curve to it obviously isn't going to have as much of a kink in the center because it has a larger radius, I suppose. Whereas this one, since it is a tighter bend and it is more of a 90, now this center section right here is not crushed by any means. Fluid could get past this perfectly fine, but it definitely looks like it is slightly more crushed than the one that was bent by hand, which makes sense. It's a harder bend. Okay, so I'm not going to go ahead and rule this tool off as useless or it's not doing its job, because honestly it works. All right, is it perfect? No, but I would assume that the larger tubing that you're having, because this is pretty easy stuff to bend, we can all agree on that, okay? And it's a fairly small diameter tubing. But if you go up to a larger size and even say like a stainless or a steel line, this tool is really going to help, because those tubings are relatively difficult to bend by hand, and that's where this tool is going to shine, okay? So is it worth it? Yeah, I think it's worth it. I just don't think you should rush out and buy one just yet, especially if you don't make brake lines or do anything crazy and you only do it once in a while. Probably, I'm on the fence whether you need one of these, okay? It all depends. Everyone's situation is different. I like it. I think I got a decent bend out of this. I've stood way too long on this one tool. Let's go ahead and move on to the next tool, and we're going to keep up the theme of brake line tools. Another tool from Eastwood, again more brake line tools. You can see it's a deburring tool. I opened this up once just to look at it and put it back in the package. So if you tighten it down, it won't come out, but if you loosen it up a few turns, it's going to allow you to stick this out, and then you can tighten it back down so that it stays in place. And there goes your deburring tool. It's actually pretty neat because it's, in case you drop this, if you have it retracted, it's not going to damage the tip. So we could go ahead and grab like this line right here, which has been cut off. So hopefully, let's see if I get this focused. You can see it has been cut off by a pipe or a tubing cutter, but it has not been deburred. So let's go ahead and use this tool right now. Oh, I could just feel it. This thing is like biting in like real nice. Just give it a few turns here. And hopefully you guys could see that it has been deburred on the inside. That actually looks really good. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and retract this, put it back, clean off the end a little bit, put that back. And the other side of the tool is another deburring tool. Hopefully you could see that. It's going to deburr the outside of the tube rather than the inside. So let's go ahead and try that right now. And I could feel that biting in there real good also. So you can see that looks real good. It's been deburred on the outside. It's super hard to get this into focus, but that looks pretty good to me. Nice thing about this, you can see how that inside of there is tapered, so it's going to pretty much accommodate any size tubing that you want to deburr. It's a pretty neat tool, honestly. I like it. It's real clever and a neat design. Let's put this aside and move on to the next Eastwood tool. Next tool we have is a LED light, and of course it did come with a box, and I tried to keep a box, yet someone in my household thought it was a good idea to throw it out, despite me saying don't throw out this box. So anyway, it has the power button right here on front, and we have two modes, which is blinding and might as well be. Yeah, super neat. You can see this part actually swivels or bends just like that. You could get up to a 90-degree in any direction like that, and besides that you could also twist it. So super cool. Really helps for under hood situations, and I'll show you an example of that right now. It has a magnet right here on the back side, as well as a strong magnet right here on the bottom, and it even has a hook right here on the back side if you want to hook it onto something, and it pivots in any direction that you want it to. And yeah, I think it's a pretty cool tool, and seems super bright. Comes with a rechargeable battery inside of there, so all you have to do is plug it in, which the adapter or the power supply is included in the box. And so far I've been really happy with the tool. Hasn't given me any problems at all. Been using it for a few weeks now, and what can I say? It's a light. Works pretty good. Next up we have a attachment that I also got from Eastwood, and it goes onto your air hammer. Okay, now this one is to remove like the Phillips screws that you would find on a rotor, or pretty much any type of screw that's stuck in place. You put this end on your air hammer. Now I already have a tool like this, okay, but this one's different because the tool that I have has a hex end on it, and you would put your like 17 or 19 millimeter wrench on it, and you hold it with a standard wrench. and that's what you use to get leverage. Whereas this one, this end goes on to the air hammer, and it has a dedicated handle that you could hold right here to try to loosen it. And whereas the other one I have has a 3/8 drive on it, you could pretty much put a socket on it or anything you wanted to that accepts a 3/8 drive, and that's all great. But this one specifically only uses bits like this. Okay, so this is really neat. I kind of like this idea that it only takes bits. So it's why I picked it up, even though I already kind of have a tool that's similar to this. Now this handle is just threaded on right here. Let's see if you guys can see that. See, it's just threaded on. So in the future I could see this coming loose, and honestly if it does start to wear out and it starts coming loose, it doesn't want to grab anymore, I'm just gonna weld it in place. It doesn't really matter to me, honestly. I think it should have been welded from the beginning, but it's the way they designed it. If it gives me problems, I'm just gonna weld it. Besides this, so it came, you know, like 1 or 2 bits with it, but I went online and I picked up these bits. Now this is a specific drive. I'm not sure, I gotta look it up. I think it might be like a 3/16 drive or something like that. So you can't just get standard bits that you would put in like your bit screwdriver. These are slightly larger. The small ones are not gonna fit. It's kind of difficult finding these size bits for this, but it is what it is. So I went online and I bought a small pack, you can see them right here, of T30 bits that are going to fit inside of here, as you can see. And the reason for that is I come across a lot of brake rotors that have T30 Torx on them, so that's where this comes into play. And again, as you saw, I said one, I think it's Phillips number 3 was included, but I know these tend to break, especially, you know, hitting on them with an air hammer. So I went out and bought a small packet of them, and they pop right in. This is a must-have tool, whether you have this kind or the other one I was talking about. It's a must-have, either one you get, because there are rotors that you are not going to be able to get that screw off, and it's either getting them off the right way with a tool like this, or you're going to end up having to cut or drill them out, and that does nothing but create a mess and eats up a ton of time. Get yourself a tool like this. It's so much of a necessity that I thought it was a good idea to have 2 different versions of this tool. That should tell you something. Get this tool. I'm not even exaggerating. As long as you have an air hammer, get this tool. Let's move on to the next tool. Next up, we have another Astro tool, which is the, let's see if I get this in here. It's a 78-830. It's a heavy duder. I heard you laugh. I'm like, heavy duder. Okay, so it's a heavy duty hub, drum, and rotor puller, as you can see. And this thing is an absolute lifesaver. I used it a few times on some rotors, and without it I would not have been able to get the job done. But don't say or think inside the box only, because it has other uses as well. I've used this to remove like rings on wheel bearing assemblies, and I think I have a video of that, so I'll put that up. But there are a lot of things you could use this tool for, so don't let it sink you into that mindset that it can only be used on drums and rotors. You just got to think outside the box sometimes. But as you can see, the tool is has been used, and it comes with everything you need inside the box. And it's just, this thing is heavy duty, okay? And I absolutely love it. I can't tell you how many times I've come across drums or rotors that don't want to come off, and this could have saved my bacon a long time ago. But one thing I can advise is this thing can put a lot of pressure on a rotor, and if you just keep cranking on this screw right here, once that rotor pops off, it's going to come off with a lot of pressure. So what I like to do is, instead of just wailing on the screw to let this tool do all the job, I just put a good amount of pressure onto the rotor using this tool, and then I use something else like a flame or a air hammer to give the vibrations into that rotor, and that's what helps it pop off. And I've actually had another example where I was using this. I did not record anything, but I applied all the pressure that I wanted to with this tool, and then simply just by putting a torch to the hub of the rotor or the face of the rotor actually popped off of the wheel hub. And that right there just shows that this tool, you absolutely need it in areas where there's a lot of rust, which is where I'm at, okay? If every rotor comes off and you live in an area where everything just comes apart magically like it's supposed to, you may not be as inclined to get a tool like this. But where I'm at, and with all the rust, it is absolutely essential to have a tool like this. Next up, we have some more tools from Astro, a set of Stubby sockets. We have a 3/8 and a 1/2 inch version here. They both came in boxes like this, which I don't know what happened to the box for the 3/8 version, but this is the box for the 1/2 inch. I grabbed some standard size impact sockets. Now keep in mind they do come on these blue rails right here, which I actually find them to be actually nice quality, and they do a really good job at holding all the sockets. So that's a bonus that it comes with the rails. You can see one is missing off of each rail, and that's because I got them right here, and they are pretty much to compare the sizes. With both of the sockets level right there, you can see how the Astro socket is much shorter than a standard 15mm short impact socket, and it's just going to help you to get into tighter places. Another thing I really like is you can see on a standard socket it's just rounded all the way around, okay, just a regular socket. But on the Astro set, you can see it's actually hex on the bottom, and you could fit a wrench on it, like a 17. I think these might be 19mm. But in those really tight places that you don't even have space to put on a ratchet on the backside, you can simply just put a wrench on the backside to loosen whatever fastener you're trying to get off. So that's pretty neat. So that's the 1/2 inch version right here. And here goes a standard 3/8 short socket. And here goes the Astro Stubby socket. So I put them, you can see the size difference right there. And the same thing with this socket. It has a hex drive on the bottom, so you could use a wrench or a ratcheting wrench on it and take off the fastener you're trying to remove. So it's one of those tools where you're not going to use it every day. It's not going to, you know, replace your regular impact sockets. These are still the go-to sockets right here. But for those tight places where you just need that little bit of extra clearance, that's where these really shine. And I think they're great. I've used them a handful of times, and they seem to be really nice, and I enjoy using them. Really glad to have these sockets in my set. So on the 3/8 side, the smallest size we have here is a 6mm, and I wish I could tell you. So we got 6, 7, 8, 9. It doesn't look like it's skipping a size. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, so we have a 6 to 19mm without skipping a size. And I'm going to assume we have the same thing going for the 1/2 inch. The smallest size here is a 10mm going all the way up to 24. Yeah, so I don't think it skips a size. So let's see, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yay, I can count. And there we go, without skipping a size. That's another thing that attracted me to them, is they do not skip any sizes. So that's super nice. Let's move on to the next tool. Here I have two more tools from Eastwood, and this first one is a side ladder, side step for a wheel. And you can see it simply just goes over the wheel like that, and it gives you that little bit extra height so you could reach into the engine bay. It's great for us short people. We just got to stick together. But yeah, it's super convenient, and it doesn't work for smaller cars, but then again, you don't need it to. It's mainly for trucks and SUVs, and it's absolutely fantastic. Next up is a press brake. So it just kind of sits in your existing shop press, and it uses the force from the press to actually bend metal, which I think is super cool. So I went ahead and picked this up from Eastwood because I thought it was neat. And look at that perfect 90-degree bend right on the line that I marked for it, and it seems to work flawlessly every single time. I think it's a great tool, and this is a tool I was talking about that also picked it up for when I started working on the CRX. Here I have a grease fitting attachment, which you just kind of squeeze it, and it kind of lets out these arms, and they kind of automatically grip onto the Zerk fitting to apply grease. And this thing is amazing. For a long time I was using just the standard fitting, the one that you have to turn it, and once your hands get all greasy, it's difficult to either tighten it or loose it. But look at this thing. Every single time I use it, it just works. And it's another one of those tools that you think, oh, I don't need it. Get this tool. Trust me. Just add it to your existing grease gun and you'll be happy. Next up, I got some tools from aeswave.com. They're a set of alligator clips. It's like 4 or 5 of them, different colors. And you can see I'm using the red one here and the black one here. And to accompany the alligator clips, I picked up a 10-foot lead wire. Yes, I bought this for this exact reason, so that when cars won't start, I mean, it's going to work for a ton of things, but for when cars won't start, I could set it in here or even bring it into the car with me and check for voltage drop. I'm loving the 10-foot leads. It's absolutely just cool. So I mean, it's not absolutely essential, but it does make the job easier. We're back in the garage for the final tool in this tool haul, which is my welder. It's a Pneumatic 211, and I absolutely love this thing. It's by far the most expensive tool that I bought as of recently. At a grand total, if I remember correctly, this thing is about $2,300, $2,400, something like that. Now the welder itself is somewhere around $1,100 to $1,300, something like that, but everything else around it just adds up because I did not have anything, so I had to go to my local welding store and I just bought everything all at once, which includes the welder itself, the Miller cart, a welding jacket, some wire, consumables, welding helmet, a tank, as well as some new Miller gloves. And as far as a cover for the welder, I had to buy that separate. I went online and bought that. It's probably like an additional $50 for that little cover for the welder. But let's go ahead and get the cover off of it so we can have a better look at the welder itself. All right, so here it is, the Pneumatic 211, and this thing is an absolute beast. I love this thing. It has saved my butt a few times already. And my old welder, which was a Harbor Freight flux core welder, it was like a $100 unit. I know I can't really compare them because it's comparing apples to oranges. I understand that. And Harbor Freight does offer better units than that flux core one. Obviously, you go up the line, they offer better welders, okay? But I just wanted to get a name brand one, something I know I could trust and rely on and just be very dependable. So it's why I went with Miller. It's what they had at my local welding store. And I do not regret the $2,300 or whatever it is I spent in this thing. It was a great investment and no regrets, okay? And this thing is an absolute beast. I'm absolutely in love with it, and its performance is just great. Okay, so it comes with this little thing down here. I don't want to try to get this out right now, but it just carries your consumables. And the cart, yeah, it was a little bit expensive for what a cart is, and you could just go to like Home Depot or Menards and get your own cart. But the thing is, I'm just picky about some things like this, where if I get a Miller welder, I want the cart from Miller that was designed to work with this welder, if that makes sense. I know some people are like that, some people aren't. Some people don't care if they got their new welder sitting on milk crates. They really don't care as long as it does its job, and I understand that. But I also knew that if I just went to Home Depot or Menards and just bought a standard welding cart, I would not be happy with it, and in the long run I would have to go out and buy this cart, which equates to wasting money. So just buy what you want the first time and be happy with it. So yeah, the Harbor Freight unit, I actually just put it up on Facebook Market. Someone came, picked it up dirt cheap. It worked perfectly. I mean, it still functioned. It just wasn't for me. Absolutely great investment. I love this thing. So with that being said, I know this is a long video. It's already rolling on way too long, and I appreciate you guys who stuck around and are still watching, and I hope you found a tool in this tool haul that maybe piqued your interest. So that's it for this haul. It may be some time before I put out another tool haul video because of course buying tools is money and it takes time to add up, okay? But that's it for this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out this video right here. Thanks for watching and have a happy new year.